Hello, this is Noreen Crone-Findlay from cronefindlay.com and tottytalkscrafts.com. Here's my page that shows my website and my blog. So when you go to cronefindlay.com, you'll find all kinds of wonderful patterns and designs and books and all kinds of neat stuff that you can order. And today I'm going to be showing how to embroider the face on a very tiny teddy bear. Now, I designed these two teddy bears, Edward and Anastasia Bear, for what used to be called Knitting Today magazine. Now it's called Your Knitting Life. And each issue has a new and separate and wonderful pattern for something magical and marvelous for Edward and Anastasia. Now, this time, what's happening is Edward and Anastasia are having or have had a tiny little baby bear, little brownie bear. So what I'm going to do is show you how to embroider a face on a tiny little baby bear. Because when you're working on quite small scale, it can be challenging. Now, I use, you can use embroidery floss. Here's baby brownie bear without a face yet. You can use embroidery floss, but I do use the black yarn, the black sock yarn that I use to knit all of the Edward and Anastasia. The different projects for them are all done in sock yarn. Now, what I like to do is I like to check my placement of the eyes for the bear, because everything for the bear face is established after you have placed where the eyes are going to be. I just want to show you a couple of things about eye placement. Now, if we put the eyes up high, you get a totally different expression that is not baby-like. If they're up high and close together, that makes an older face. If you move them apart, it still reads as being an older face. To get a baby face, what you have to do is you have to move the eyes down to the center line. What if at or below the center line? What if you put the eyes too far apart? It can look like a little baby bug and not a little baby bear. So that's why it's so neat to use a pin with glass beads on them. Okay, so that's too far apart, right? I like the placement top to bottom, but let's try a little closer and see. Just being able to play around. Oops, that one's a little off the center line. Oh, okay, yeah, I like that. That's good. And by having the eyes placed, then that is going to give me all the visual cues I need for where I'm going to place the nose and mouth of the bear. But I've got my eyes placed now, but I'm not going to start by embroidering the eyes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the nose, which is embroidered, of course, right here between the eyes, between and one stitch down from the eyes, because we have such a tiny bit of space to work, so we're working kind of one stitch at a time. I've got my yarn threaded through a needle that I know is going to be small enough to fit through the E-beads. These are, they're called E-beads, they're a 6mm glass bead. And I'm going to use the stitching over and over in the nose as the place to anchor my thread. So I'm going to start by going through the base of the neck of the bear, and I'm going to come out at the base of the nose. Now, the base of the nose is going to be that's going to be our starting point for our nose and for our mouth. So that establishing where you want that to be is pretty important. So now you can see I'm stitching through the bear. I'm going to leave a tail sticking out on the other side, because if you try and pull it up at first to get it, absolutely right, you just end up pulling all the way through. So that's kind of annoying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor my yarn by stitching in place several vertical stitches for the nose right off the start. I'll be able to come back and finish the nose after I have placed the eyes, but I want to have, at least 2 or 3 stitches in place to have that anchored. I like to work with just one strand of the yarn. If you're working with a larger size bear, then it's okay to work with 2 or 3 strands of yarn held together. But when I am working with such a tiny face, and to get that expression really accurate, I want to be able to take fairly small stitches and go over them multiple times in order to get the embroidery to be just exactly where I want it to be. And if I'm working with the yarn being too thick, it's not going to serve me well. Now, I'm just about finished the nose, and so this last stitch, I'm coming up from the base over the top of the nose, and I'm going to bring the needle out right at the base. Check to make sure. No, need to move it back a little bit. Right at the base of the pin where I placed that first pin for Baby Bear's eye. I'm going to pull up the nose and reach down with my needle and pick up. See, I've picked up one of the E-beads. I'm going to go back in the same. I just dropped it. Okay, that's why I put extra beads in there. I'm going to go back into the face of the bear at just as close as possible to where I came out, and I'm going to bring my needle out at the point where that first pin went in, and that allows me to pull up Baby Brownie Bear's eye and kind of move it around a bit to get it adjusted. Now that I'm coming out in the place that I want the second eye to be, I'm going to go down and pick up the next bead and hopefully not drop this one. Take it down through, and again I'm going to go back into the face of the bear at the same point that I came out. Now, this time, when I go in, I'm going to come back out at the base of the nose. Also, please, if you're going to be giving this bear to a young child, please, 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 please do not use beads or buttons or anything that's going to present a choking hazard to the child. Do embroidered dots or glued on felt dots rather than using beads or buttons. Now I'm going to pull up a bit to anchor that second eye, and I'm coming out at the base of my nose. I'm now going to establish the little smile. So I look at how far over do I want to come with my needle, and I figure, it's about one knitting stitch's worth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a horizontal stitch, but just half of the smile at a time. So I make one horizontal stitch here. I'm a little bit off with my placement, so I'm going to go back into the nose and move my stitch over a bit, and I will go over the same amount of space that I went for the first stitch, I will do for the second stitch. And what I'm going to do is this time when I come out, I want to be making a tiny little stitch that's going to, you can see baby looks kind of grumpy, right? So I want to pull this stitch down, so I slip up into it, into a smile, and I do that by coming up halfway across that horizontal line and taking a tiny stitch and pulling it down. I'm going to do the same for the other half, so I go across with that stitch over. Oops, I pulled it up a bit too hard, so I've made that smile disappear a bit. I can pull it out to make it show up a bit better. Take my second stitch, and then I'm going to go back up into my nose, and to lock all my stitches for the smile, kind of work the smile around with your needle. I'm going to secure my stitches by stitching in place a couple more times on the nose, and that will lock my stitches in place and secure them. And if you'd like to secure your eyes, you know, to be really certain that those eyes are well secured, that's fine. I'll go back through and I'll take another stitch through, and I will just make sure then that those eye beads are securely on there. And then I do all my parking of the stitches. The securing of them all happens in the nose, and I'll stitch over maybe once or twice, and then I will take my needle back down from the tip of the nose, back out through baby bear's back, and if you're using a fairly lofty yarn, you can sometimes go in and, you know, sneak a stitch in between. We'll see if that's okay, if that works. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. You can hide it really well. Yep, that's going to work just fine. Great. See, it disappeared. I pulled it up and it just vanished. So I now will kind of pull up on my yarn and snip it so that that end, give the body a bit of a puffing to make it vanish. And I'm going to bend the head forward, snip to trim that first end, puff up. There you go. And there we have baby bear. I'm going to work the stitches a little bit more with my needle, pull them out to work them. And there we have a very sweet and tiny baby bear. And there's going to be all kinds of wonderful new things to follow for Edward and Anastasia and their sweet little brownie bear. So with each issue, there'll be more goodies for you to knit. And if you like having the video tutorials, let me know and I will keep doing them. If it's helpful, then it's worthwhile doing. So go gently. Happy knitting, and of course, happy teddy bears. Bye for now. See you again really soon.